Hello from Southern Ontario. It's May 9th. So I spent about 3 hours today watching what was happening in Europe and the UK with the politics and the problems with mass migration. Now, don't tell me I'm racist, prejudiced, a far-right extremist, or an old white transgender phobic Judeo-Christian, whatever all that nonsense is. I'm just commenting on what I've observed. The UK and the European countries are a mess with their mass migration policies. The Rebel News, it was in Ireland. Just 3-4 days back, they had like a 10,000 person protest in Dublin. The working class and middle class protesting their government, not listening to the people regarding the mass immigration problems. And the UK and the European countries, a lot of it is undocumented and illegal immigrants. The European Union Parliament's policies being basically, if they show up at your door and they don't have documents, well, you're just supposed to take them in anyways. Oh, except for the countries that have tightened the reins, I mentioned earlier, Poland and Hungary. Everywhere else is a mess. Sweden, for example, used to be touted as one of the better nations in the world socially. Happier, less crime, a successful society. They are a hot mess with their having followed the open immigration policies. Now we come to, and again I point out, it is often, not always, but often, not the fault of the immigrants. What we see in Sweden and in these other countries is organized crime, a rise in organized crime, and a rise in organized youth gang activities. Sweden, a great example. Their second generation, the immigrants who immigrated into the countries, I'll say plural, although I did mention Sweden specifically, and they're born in the country, and they just don't see any opportunities to get ahead. All of these countries have a lot of the problems that we're seeing surfacing in Canada. A housing crisis, a homelessness crisis. And the immigrants and their children, the youth growing up in those countries, they see no hope. The countries are going broke, social strife, etc. So the rise in crime amongst youth, well, again, it's not always the immigrants' faults. Now, I'm not touching on the subject of religion. I'm not even going to go there. But anyways, moving back to Ireland, I saw Ezra Levant there, and he pointed out, as I had, although he portrayed it a little bit differently, their immigration to population rate pretty well parallels what we have happening in Canada. Saw another guy in a different newscast. It was a Great Britain GB newscast. So people don't realize, they never see a problem until it's right on their doorstep and right in their face. Well, in the UK and in the European countries, it's right in their face. It's just not in our face in Canada, really, yet. Although, I wonder, is anybody in Canada keeping stats on the crime? We know that we have, a 100% increase in crime since 2015, and a 40% increase in violent crime, or very close to 40%. Is anybody keeping statistics? Are we having the same immigration generational statistics as what we see coming out of, again, Europe and the UK? I don't know. I can't substantiate that because I really rather doubt we're keeping any statistics. I didn't go looking for them. I had mentioned earlier, I was quoted some people, or spoke of some people who'd been at the CPAC meeting. But today I was looking at a lot of people, politicians, journalists, etc. Because Europe, so many of the countries are holding elections this year. So many politicians are running. And the European Union Parliament is holding their elections this year too. And the people who are speaking out, I'll just say over there, are speaking out strongly that they need to tighten these lax immigration rules. It's on their doorstep. They're seeing it now because it's right in their faces. Here in Canada, I said earlier in the video, we're not really seeing it in our faces in a great part of the country because it's such a big country. But if you go to Brampton, Southern Ontario, or Toronto, I think you do see the results of it. So anyways, I speak of this because with Bills C11 and C18, you're probably largely unaware of what's going on politically in Europe and in the UK. And I'll leave the farmers' revolts out of it for the moment. That's what Bills C11 and 18 are for, so we don't see what's going on over there. Should have prefaced the video with that.